Well, Europe is marking 75 years since the end of World War II when Nazi Germany surrendered to the Allies. But coronavirus restrictions are putting a damper on some of the commemorations this year. We'll have more about it in a live report.
Stay tuned to get 2 rolls of alien tape free. You heard that right, free. Yours today. Here's how to order. Call 1-800.
This will mark one of the bloodiest battles that has ever been fought for freedom and democracy. Let us never forget those who sacrificed so dearly of the lives going up against tyranny, going up against communism, going up against evil that existed during that time that was trying to rule and dominate mankind in such of a evil, demonic way that it took the actions of the world to basically halt it in its tracks. May we continue to always be thankful, be humbly grateful for the men and women who was willing to sacrifice and put their lives on the line for us today to have the freedoms that we have. Though marking the completion of the 75th anniversary when Nazism had to surrender to humanity, let us never forget that in which what occurred of some of the greatest men and women during a generation, an era that will never, ever be forgotten.
That's Welsh singer Katherine Jenkins. She will mark the 75th anniversary of VE Day on Friday by singing to an empty Royal Albert Hall in London. Jenkins called performing in an empty auditorium surreal, but she's honored to be singing at the 150-year-old legendary venue. The concert will be streamed online via YouTube. Of course, you're looking at pictures from the war. Her singing is just one example of just how sober Victory in Europe Day celebrations will be in Europe this year. Many commemorations are having to go virtual, and those that are maintained are just a shadow of what they deserve to be. 75 years ago, yes, 75 years ago, massive crowds poured out into the streets as Nazi Germany surrendered to the Allies. Then British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, who you're seeing here, had an essential role, of course, to mark such a momentous day. Some European leaders will be laying wreaths to honor the dead. CNN's Melissa Bell joins me live from Paris. Victory in Europe Day 75. It's really sad to know that it just won't be and feel like it has in the past. And good morning to you, Melissa.
Good morning, Natalie. That's right. For 75 years, this extraordinary anniversary has been marked, and it takes these sorts of anniversaries, these sorts of dates, for us to understand just how profoundly the world has changed. Because, of course, those ceremonies will look so different today. There will in the United Kingdom be a 2-minute silence. The Queen will make an address. Here in Paris, we're expecting Emmanuel Macron to make his way up a completely closed-off Champs-Élysées within the next hour for a closed ceremony. Angela Merkel also holding a closed ceremony in Berlin. So the normal celebrations have been put on hold, but there is something about the courage that it took those who saw the Allies through World War II that is being called upon once again. Boris Johnson did it in this address.
The countries who we fought are now among our closest friends. And most of Europe has enjoyed 75 years of peace. We're now engaged in a new struggle against the coronavirus, which demands the same spirit of national endeavour.
Now, Emmanuel Macron will make his way up the Champs-Élysées a little bit later today in what is still a partially locked down France. That stay-at-home order is still in place. It will be progressively, gradually lifted from Monday. But as you mentioned a moment ago, Natalie, Paris is one of those areas that will see some restrictions still placed on people's movements. Elsewhere in Europe, loads of countries are looking towards reopening. We've seen Italy and Spain taking steps towards reopening their economies. But those restrictions, of course, will continue to weigh on many European economies that have suffered profoundly as a result of these lockdown measures and that are really looking to open as quickly and as completely as they can, but that need very much to do it in a gradual way. The Prime Minister here in France said just yesterday that France would be looking very closely from Monday at how those figures of people entering ICUs, for instance, new cases developed, new deaths were evolving, and if there were rises as a result of the lifting of the restrictions, then France would not hesitate to bring in a second stay-at-home order. So that's what you're seeing in Europe now. Countries looking towards opening again, but keeping a very close eye on the figures, the COVID-19 figures that will tell them whether that reopening has come too soon and whether they need to go back to further restrictions, Natalie.
Yeah, just the thought of going back, that's what a lot of people may be seeing if they've just jumped it too early. Melissa Bell in Paris, thank you so much, Melissa.
As we close out this chapter with our men and women in uniform on the final 75th anniversary, we still have living here in America a few that are struggling in their lives towards representing that era of people. 75 years of changes has occurred upon to the planet due to those who was willing to sacrifice so much. We as a society here upon to the planet has evolved into what and where we are today in being able to fly international flights to and fro and from, drive some of the nicest automobiles ever erected, eat in some of the nicest cafes and restaurants, be involved in some of the grandest, greatest colleges and universities up onto the world, and if necessary, go to some of the best hospitals that mankind can ever desire to go into if an emergency occurs. One of the greatest nations in the world, the United States of America, rose out of the ashes and merged as a conquering force with the rest of the planet on a global scale upon to this particular anniversary. May we never forget that we as a society are much greater in being united rather than being divided. And maybe God allowed for this coronavirus to come into play so that it would remind us of the very substance that united we stand and divided we fall. May we continue to strive towards a better, peacefuler, enduring place to live in, rather than having to go up against the aggression forces of the enemy that is still out there in various places, that still wants to bring tyranny, still wants to bring that type of barbaricness to society. Let us always remember that we here in America will always do the right thing in conquering and achieving and maintaining democracy up onto this planet. Communism is not the way to go. Communism has died as of the falling of the Berlin Wall in 1988. And just as Ronald Reagan, who took on a bullet for us, but rose through his courageousness and was back in office in a very short span, that said, we as a society must always be that 1,000 points of light to remember not only the past, but in remembrance of our great future. We have a marvelous future if we will only pull together as a strong society should in marking Germany's deadliest day of their accomplishments towards triumphant moments like this. We should never forget where we come from to guide us where we're going. We should never forget where we come from to guide us to know where we're going. To use a core of principles coming from the Bible is the only way for man to achieve light over darkness, good over evil. Thank God for the men and women who laid down their lives that we're honoring the dead up onto this completion of this 75th year since the ending of World War II. As we struggle with the coronavirus, we know that one day we too will be triumphant. But we must learn from our tyranny. We must learn from the trials and tribulations that we're struggling with right now in identifying what and how and why that this has occurred. Let us learn from our lessons so that they will never be repeated again. And let us look forward to a new future for tomorrow. And yes, going where no man or no woman or mankind has never gone before. Remembering this day of being one of the grandest, greatest days that history has ever recorded, other than the birth of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Thank you to my viewers. Good luck to all of us as we merge into the future in remembrance of this day. God bless America. God bless America's allies. And God bless those who are searching and looking for a grander, greater, more sustainable, safer, a more environmentally friendly future to come. God bless and shalom. As I travel through this pilgrim land, there is a friend who walks with me. As I kneel in prayer, I hope to meet you there. Precious Jesus, hold my hand. As I kneel in prayer, I hope to meet you there. Precious Jesus, hold my hand. Hallelujah. 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 And they said the symbol come from the Beatles. The symbol of peace, victory, come way before the Beatles did. This was a symbol, an international symbol for the global community to look upon in honor of this day. And may us never forget that. It was the other symbol that the Beatles helped create, which was basically the circle with the upside down cross. Even during John Lennon's, one of his songs, they was going to use the lyrics of Amen, but they thought that it would be too formally representing the spirituality side of their song. So instead of saying amen, they used the lyrics, let it be, let it be, let it be. I just wanted to bring that out to my viewers. Something that I recognized. Winston Churchill standing on a balcony using the victory. Peace.